Welcome to Inspire Me with Jay, a podcast focusing on meditation, the near-death experience, and all things spiritual. Hello, this is Jay Spillers with Inspire Me with Jay. My special guest is Lois Hollis. How are you, Lois?
I'm very well today. I'm happy to speak with you.
That's good to have you. So, you work with issues of guilt and shame in what you do. What exactly do you do with guilt and shame?
Well, the first thing I do is I help people to understand that everything they have been taught about shame and guilt is wrong. So that's why we've been stuck in shame and guilt since Adam and Eve. I help people to understand a different way of looking at shame and guilt.
Mm-hmm. So you have a background in nursing. I saw REV. Are you a reverend?
Yes.
And what church do you teach in?
It's a non-denominational church, and it gives me the ability to counsel people with the shame guilt experience. And once people understand how shame guilt affects us, then we can more readily kick it out of our personality because it doesn't belong to us.
So how do you define guilt and shame? Don't you define it a bit differently than some people?
Yes, well, I'm a trailblazer, Jay, and I couldn't believe that someone has it made shame guilt its own study. Now, I see shame guilt as one energy. It's not shame and guilt or guilt and shame, because that keeps our mind going flip-flop. One's good, one's bad. They say guilt is necessary to keep us moral, and shame is bad. And I'm saying that shame works in the unconscious mind and guilt works in the conscious mind, but they're the same energy. That's the biggest education that I can share with people, because shame produces more guilt and guilt produces more shame. Guilt produces more shame, shame produces more guilt. So you'll never get rid of it, because if you just look at shame or guilt, they potentiate each other. It's like different words for the same energy. How does that feel for you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I understand what you're saying. So do you think there's any place for shame or guilt, or is it all bad?
It's all bad. It's a negative energy that's placed upon us as humans, and it comes in the way of words we say to other people and words we say to ourselves. Oh, you're not good. You can't do that. Don't even try. And these are remnants of what people have told us. It's in our culture. It's in our religion. It's in our families. It's in everything we do. And when you look at it as that expression, you understand, like, oh my goodness, shame guilt is the pandemic. That's a pandemic. It's in everything, in everyone. Shame guilt energy only has one defect. It dissolves in detection. Now, isn't that interesting that nobody wants to talk about it? Nobody wants to expose it. It's all hidden within us. And you're more ashamed if you say you have shame. Correct?
I spent several years of my life stressed, anxious, and depressed. I needed to find something that would make my life work. For me, that was meditation. With meditation, I found the peace of mind that I was looking for. I found the happiness And I found a way to improve every area of my life, my emotional life, my spiritual life, my relationships. I was able to discover things about myself. I can give you the tools to meditate. I will walk you through the process and hold your hand. Whether you're a beginner to meditation who's never meditated, or whether you're someone who's tried meditation and it just never seemed to work, we can make it work. Meditation is something that everyone can do, and I can show you how. Check out my course on meditation.
So that's my job. My job is to expose shame, guilt for what it is, and then it can dissipate, it can go away, and we get smarter.
Is there a connection between shame and guilt and fear? Because a lot of people have noticed the ill effects of fear and they're starting to focus on fear. But does shame and guilt have a connection to fear?
Fear is a double dose of shame, guilt energy. Fear is locked in shame, guilt energy. And now I'm calling shame, guilt an energy, not an emotion. And I'm saying this why? Because we have the love energy, and everybody knows about love energy. It gives us joy and happiness and confidence. We are able to have compassion. We're intuitive. We understand things. We don't say to ourselves, we can't do that. We say, of course we can do it. I'm strong. I'm good. On the other side, we have shame, guilt energy that sources all the negative emotions. Shame, guilt turns our positive emotions to negative ones. Each emotion has a negative part and a positive part, and this is not what's talked about. Each emotion has a negative and a positive orientation. Shame, when shame comes into you, like you stupid jerk, why'd you do such a dumb thing? That's shame energy coming to you through the words. It's like a leech coming to you and sucking the goodness out of you. Some people call it a shame guilt leech. Some people call it a shame guilt monster. Some people call it a shame guilt energy. I don't care what you call it, but we have to see it as a thing. It's like a computer virus. What happens to your computer when a virus hits it?
It goes down.
It goes down like all over, and like you need a virus removal program. You can't just say, computer virus, go away.
Well, and it has a tendency sometimes to spread to other people's computers and phones and things like that too.
Exactly. That's a very smart analogy here, because shame guilt goes downhill. It's like the boss gets angry at his employer for doing something wrong on his report. And that person, husband or wife, goes home to their family and hollers at their kids because of the shame guilt that they received from the boss. And then the kid goes out to play with his friends, and he hollers at his friends. It goes downhill. People, it's like a hot potato. You know how the hot potato goes around and nobody wants to hold it, or nobody wants to not have a chair to sit in? That's shame guilt. That's brilliant. It goes from one person to the next because nobody wants to hold the hot potato. But we don't know that. And that's my job. My job is to bring forth the shame guilt, how it really affects us. And it's not part of humanity. So shame guilt comes to us like a computer virus because we are negative energy people. And it changes our positive emotions to negative ones. Compassion turns to depression. Intuition turns to anxiety. Passion turns to anger.
Well, you see it generationally too. Like if you have a parent that's particularly good at shaming, they were probably shamed as a
Oh,
child
they're really good
themselves.
at it.
Yeah.
You get it, you get it, you get it. So, what you have to do when you understand it's shame, guilt, not shame and guilt, it's shame, guilt. And never
Mhm.
ever say my shame. It's the shame, never own it.
Mhm.
My house, my furniture, the shame, the guilt. We can't own it.
What is a,
And
oh, go ahead.
I have,
What
I
is,
was so excited. Yeah.
what
What is
is a
this?
way that,
What?
I was just saying, what is a way that you get rid of shame and guilt?
By acknowledging, what did I say? Shame, guilt dissolves in detection. It loses it. Remember the Wizard of Oz?
Hmm.
And Dorothy goes up the yellow brick road. Oh, the wizard, I'm so afraid. Oh. And then Toto pulls the curtain back. And what do you see? A little old man, bald and gray, with a big machine that's puffing smoke.
Hmm.
The puff of smoke is shame, guilt, energy. The jig is up.
Hmm.
I'm Toto. My
Hmm.
job is to be Toto and pull the curtain back and tell people that shame, guilt is an energy that's bad, makes us be a victim, makes us be slaves to other people, makes us victims, makes us inferior, and we don't express ourselves in our greatness.
Hmm.
It's a great tool that they're using, the government, the culture, but we've been conditioned to do that. So it's not your fault.
Hmm.
You were
Well,
trained to do shame, guilt. And I'm saying I got to untrain people.
well, as part of it, seeing that you start to see your life as a journey and that everything is about experiencing, learning, and growing. So if you see something you might think of as negative in your past, you see it as this was part of my journey. It's part of my growing experience. And it sort of takes the power and away from the shame, guilt.
Exactly. That's a good way of looking at it. We can see the negative problems. I had a very abusive childhood, so I can see that and I can see where I learned from it. But I had to get rid of the shame, guilt energy that was in it. It's okay for the journey, but you got to see shame, guilt, and literally take it out. And it dissolves in detection. When you detect it, it dissolves because it's a leech. It sucks you out.
Hmm.
So that's the concept that I need to help people see and learn, that when someone starts doing the bad mouth on the cell phone,
Hmm.
you just go, no, 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 don't take it, don't take it. So you've heard people say, I'm not taking that. Well,
Hmm.
what they're saying is, I'm not taking the shame, guilt you're throwing at me.
Hmm.
I'm calling shame, guilt for what it is. I'm not disguising it.
Do you do anything like affirmations, like affirming that you accept yourself, or do you do any kind of
Well, that can
meditations?
help. That kind of helps, but it's not going to get rid of shame, guilt until you see the wizard behind the curtain putting out the shame, guilt energy. I'm not saying that's bad. I'm just saying you're going to get no place. You're going to get help a little bit, but it's not going to get rid of the shame, guilt. You have to see it, to know it, to get rid of it.
Hmm.
And we have been taught by our culture we need shame, guilt to keep us moral. No, we don't. I know what's good and bad. I don't need guilt to tell me I shouldn't do something. But they locked it together, so it's locked in our brain. We have to change our brain. We have to think another way. That shame guilt is bad. And we just say, no, I don't want to feel that. I can feel regret, remorse for something I did wrong, but I don't want to feel guilt. Guilt is dangerous.
Mhm.
Can I tell you why guilt is dangerous to us?
Sure.
Okay. There's a wonderful physician and researcher named David Hawkins. He lives in heaven now.
Hmm.
He did an energy number for every one of our emotions, which is pretty cool. The highest one is enlightenment, as we all know, being in spirit, being in love. And it comes in at 700,000 to the 30th zeros, 30 zeros. That's a huge, huge number for us to live in wisdom and love and joy. And then it comes down to happiness and confidence, self-esteem. And then around 200, just 200, it turns to anger, hatred, depression. Do you know what the lowest number is?
Shame, guilt.
You got it.
Mm.
You got it. It comes in at a 10. 10. That's the lowest energy that a human can survive at. So when you're in guilt, you're in the lowest frequency that you can live.
Mm.
And that's why, and you know what's after guilt?
Shame.
Death. Nothing.
Nothing. Oh.
No. What's
Oh.
after? It's suicide. That's why suicide and guilt are related.
Mm.
People can't live in guilt. So if for any particular item I can get across to people today is don't be in guilt, even though you think you deserve it. You can feel regret or remorse or anger, but don't be in guilt. Don't be in shame. You got to kick it out because that has no solution to it because it tells you you are not good. That's what guilt and shame say. So we cannot be in guilt and shame. We can switch it on our mind and say, I feel remorse, I feel regret. Now, I had a client that was very guilty because she couldn't save her mother from alcoholism. And her mother passed away. And she had become very guilt ridden because she couldn't help her mother. And you understand that because if a person doesn't want to be helped, you really can't help it.
Mm-hmm.
So she decided to use regret and remorse that she couldn't help her mother. And then she started programs for other people to get out of the alcoholic habit. And she was very successful. Do you see how that led to a solution?
Mm-hmm.
But guilt doesn't. Guilt is bad. Shame is bad. It's all bad.
Mm-hmm.
We have to be Toto and say, I see you. Get out. Now, I can be depressed. I can be anxious. I can be angry. That's okay. And we can work with those emotions. High depression. How are you? What do you want to tell me? High anxiety. What do you want to tell me? We can work with our emotions. We cannot work with shame guilt. We have to kick it out.
Well, that's probably the thing that's most controlling in our world because you might be thrown in a gulag or something, but in all likelihood, you're more controlled through people manipulating you with shame, guilt than anything else.
Exactly.
Mm.
You got it. You got it, Jay. I mean, it's really not hard. We're not stupid people here. But shame makes us stupid.
Hmm.
And we become a victim. Do this, do that. Okay, okay. If I don't do it, I'll feel guilty. Well, don't do guilt.
Hmm.
And we are smart enough to change our brain. Go swimming,
Hmm.
call your friend. And people say, I don't have any friends. If I say, call a department store, at least they'll give you the hours of the store. I mean, you need to talk to another person to get out of guilt.
Hmm.
It's an emergency when you're in guilt. And I write from spirit. I have very spirit writings, and people read those writings and it helps them to raise their vibration out of guilt. So that's what I offer people. Read my writings, talk to a person, just get out of guilt. That's the first thing. There's nothing good about guilt or shame. It's just a leech sucking you dry. It sucks your life out of you, your energy. How else can you go from 700,000 to 10?
Hmm.
That's pretty sad, isn't it?
Yeah.
And that's proven. That's not Lois just saying something off the top of her head. That's proven scientifically that guilt is the lowest energy you can have and still be alive.
Hmm. Well, it seems like with
So when someone said you should feel, go ahead.
oh, I was gonna say, in religion seems like it's almost a double-edged sword, because on the one hand, we have things like, well, Jesus paid it all, cast your cares upon him, just release it all to God, which is great. But then somehow religion has a way of shaming us for, not following the
Of
rules
course,
all.
I'm not saying that all religions are bad, but you can't do that to people. You can say, help your neighbor, whatever community, but religion is, excuse me, I'm a Catholic and I had to recover.
Mm.
And I'll tell you a little story. Um, I was about 8 or 9 years old in Catholic school, and I'm standing in line to go to confession. And I'm like the third or fourth kid there. And the sisters and nuns are all around. And I'm crying and crying and crying. And the nun comes up to me and says, why are you crying? I said, I can't find my sins. I mean, what is an 8-year-old kid? I'm in a Polish family. I have no real friends. I just go to school, come home, eat my dinner with my parents, go to bed and study and get up and and I went to church every day. So, I mean, what sins am I creating? I couldn't find my sins. And I said, you told me that God died for my sins and I have to get rid of my sins, but I can't find my sins. So God taught me how to live properly in love. But they could use that victim thing to put money in the church and make you feel a victim, and that's their job. Don't get me started.
Mm.
It's all about empowering us to be better humans. When we're better humans, we love each other more. Isn't that true, Jay?
Mm-hmm. I think the thing is too is that a lot of us, we want to make other people happy and we want to be a pleaser of other people, but then people will take advantage of that and use guilt and shame to
Of
get what they
course they
want from
do.
you.
Exactly. And if you're an easy mark, oh my goodness, you're dead in the water.
Mm.
Isn't it better to be a fully functioning human, very successful, very loving, very giving, and be an example to other people? You cannot save someone else. You can only save yourself. And there's a quote in the Bible that Jesus said. Now, the Bible has some good stuff and some bad stuff. They messed it up. Jesus said, I came to set my people free. And it's not because of shame and guilt. He wanted them to be free to be like Jesus, like loving and joyful. And the only way you can do that is to do it yourself. You can't do it for somebody else. Do you have kids?
Yeah, I have one son.
Okay. I mean, it teaches you they act their own way. You can help them, you can guide them, but once they're teenagers, forget it. I have three adult children, so I mean, like, we want, well, ask your opinion, Mom, when we want it, but don't give it to us. Okay.
Mm. Mm.
It's all about shame. You're a bad person if you don't help somebody. Okay. Now, if I'm in the store and someone is dropping groceries, of course I'm going to help the person. I don't walk by people. But we're talking about giving yourself to other people. You can't do it. You have to be strong. And you can do it out of love, but don't do it out of shame, guilt. Like my daughter was moving, so I went to help her. I didn't do it out of guilt. I did it because I love my daughter. There's a difference. I'm not giving myself away. I'm using it as love. Now, do I help everybody that moves? Heck no.
Mm. There's more
And
shame
that's
guilt.
where,
Oh, go ahead.
go ahead, there's more shame, guilt.
Does more shame guilt come from external sources or from within our own self? Us
Both,
shaming and guilting.
both ourselves. Now, we can make friends with our inner critic. We can't throw it away. We can't say you're stupid, you're dumb, get out of here. Most therapies say just shut the inner critic up. Now, I have films that teach you how to make friends with your inner critic. Your inner critic learned the shame guilt way when you were 2 and 3. You're now 40 or 50 years old. And the inner critic's still operating like you're 2 or 3. You just have to say, okay, my inner critic's called King. So I said, King, would you like to come to 2022 and not be in 1950?
Mm.
Because I know about shame guilt. I can stop people. You don't have to tell me. That's micromanaging me. You have to grow up because I grew up. And now my king, the inner critic, goes around the world finding podcast people for me, like you, Jay.
Mm.
He's got a new job. He doesn't shame me because I grew out of that. He grew up. He's not 2 years old. I'm 78. I learned this stuff. You don't have to. So I had to talk like I'm talking to you, Jay. We can talk to our inner critic and say, hey, would you grow up and be in 2022 instead of 1955 when I was 4 years old?
Mm.
So that's how we make friends with our inner critic. So therefore, we don't shame ourselves anymore. Isn't that cool?
Yeah. Yeah, it's cool. So I mean, it's basically you have to be direct with shame, guilt. You can't sort of be indirect and say, I'm going to focus more on positive, though you should do focusing on positive like love and acceptance. You do have to directly address your shame, guilt issue.
No, never say your shame. Say the shame.
Oh, the
Never own it.
shame.
I know it's crazy. We're so conditioned. We're so conditioned. But Jay, I've been on many podcasts, but let me tell you, you're the one that really gets the clarity of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, be positive, but you got to kick shame out. It's like if you have people come to your house and they're stealing your furniture, eating your food, and you say, I'm kicking you out. Well, you can kick out shame guilt too. You have uninvited guests coming into you, and we're like, no, get the heck out of here. I can kick you out. I see you. I know you're here. Go to another person. This store's closed. Goodbye.
Mm. When someone
Isn't
else
that
is,
powerful?
yeah, it is. When someone else is shaming or shame guilting you, do you usually tell them to their face or do you just sort of
Yeah,
internally
you
say
say, I
reject
say
it?
no, say no, say no. I don't accept that. Or if you wanted to be diplomatic, if you're in a party or something, say, that's interesting. Don't, that's an interesting comment. Because one bank was shaming me about something, and I said, well, that's an interesting statement. Goodbye. I just didn't take it. But if it's flamboyant and all, you'll just say, no. Can you say that another way? That's what I used to do to my kids. Say, no. Can you say that another way? And then they have to think that they're using shame guilt, and you shouldn't do that. Can you say that another way, or just say no? And in my film, I show you how to do that with animation. So you can get the picture. Excuse me. So you can get the picture of how to say no.
Do you usually have people come in for like therapy sessions, and you just sort of guide them through how to do these
exactly
kind of
what I'm doing with you? Yes. And then it's all about education, Jay. I'm giving you the education that you never received. I never received it either. And once I realized it, I healed, Jay, that quickly. I healed so quickly, it was amazing. And then people came to me and they said, what are you doing? You look so different. And you're healing and you don't have a back benched over and everything. And I said, I'm just talking to myself. And they said, can we do that? And I said, yes, so. So they came to me and I'm talking to them like I'm talking to you. They changed. And then their mothers came and their fathers and their grandkids. And that's how I became the profession that I'm doing. They found me. I didn't think to be this. And so I am always amazed how people's face change. They look younger because they don't have the shame guilt energy warping them into aging. Aging is shame guilt. Because shame guilt is cumulative. It doesn't go away until you take it away. So you have shaming from 10 years old and a teenager, a young adult, all the marriage, all the kids. It just adds up, and then it's like a big burden on you. And once you get rid of it, your body regenerates itself. It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. I get amazed every day.
Do you still struggle with shame guilt today yourself, or is it just never comes up anymore?
I don't know if we can ever totally get rid of it, but it's like 90% less. Like, oh, that's the shame guilt thing. Oh yeah, kick that thing out. And then I go ahead. I don't know, but heck, it's 90% gone. That's pretty cool, because I was like in death's door. I was dying from shame guilt. I was suicidal, Jay. I wanted to check out because I was too bad for this world. Yeah, and I did the guilt thing 24/7, and it wasn't pretty, Jay.
You never had it where you felt shame guilt about feeling shame guilt, Does that ever happen?
I don't know. It was just a big mess, Jay. I mean, it was like I was stupid and dumb for believing all that stuff. And I was very religious. And I think the religion took me down. Mea culpa, mea culpa, mea ma. I'm just saying that I love God. I'm a very God-fearing person. But I'm not a shame guilt person. And once the priest starts preaching the shame guilt, I walk out. I say, I don't do shame guilt. I'm a child of God. I don't do shame guilt. And what are you going to say about it? And that makes them think.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if you've ever studied like the near-death experience, because
I had a near-death experience.
Oh, you did?
Yeah. from the abuse when I was like 8 or 9 years old. My sister sat on my head. She broke C1, C2, and C3. You
Hmm.
die with that one. And they sent me back. But that's how I can think of different things that people don't think of, because I had access to another dimension. I started the first kidney hemodialysis unit in the country in 1966 in Philadelphia.
Mm.
So I'm always a trailblazer because that's
What
what I do.
what did you see in your near-death experience? Did you see a light or?
I can't remember it all. I can't remember much of it, but I was changed. And I felt like they never abused me anymore. Like I felt like I was invisible to people that wanted to harm me. It was very interesting.
Mm.
But I didn't remember that experience until I was 40 or 50, because I knew things that other people didn't know. They said, "How do you know that?" I said, "Well, doesn't everybody know that?" And that's when I realized, because I was teaching this about interpersonality parts and how we see our inner critic, and people say, "Well, Lois, I don't know what you're talking about. I can't see what you're seeing." I says, "What do you mean you can't see this?" And that's why I went to film school, to show what I see. When I was 60 something years old, I went to film school. That was a journey. Talk about a journey. But I had to show people what I see so they can understand that the shame guilt is a puff of smoke put
Mm.
upon us by culture, by corporations. You better buy this. This will happen to you. That they use shame and guilt to do everything. And, don't even get me talk about the all the COVID stuff. It was
Mm.
all victimizing to people. Anyway, shame and guilt is used to make us do what the authorities want us to do, and it
Mm.
works.
Like I know, like with the NDE, if you ever get up to the life review, people say God doesn't judge you, you end up judging yourself. And that sort of goes along with what you're saying, is that God doesn't actually shame or
Oh,
guilt you.
that's you do it yourself.
Mm-hmm.
That's beautiful, Jay. I love that what you said.
Mm-hmm.
We judge ourselves. God doesn't judge us, and that's shame guilt. I learned that we have to say shame guilt out loud. We have to call it what it is. Remember how Sansu said, "Know your enemy"?
Mm-hmm.
Well, shame guilt's our enemy. We have to know how it works, why it works, and what words people use to shame guilt us, or we shame guilt ourselves. And that's what I do. I'm a teacher. I help people to learn, because we did not learn that in school. We learned to shame ourselves. And that was a good thing. No, 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 no.
Mm-hmm. Do you get into like subtleties too? Because a lot of times people won't directly say something, but it'll be a tone in their voice, it'll be the body language, something like that,
Oh,
that'll subtly send the cues to you.
oh, Jay, you're so smart. People go like put their hand on the hip and look at you like, oh, really? I mean, it's sarcasm. It's the body language. They're just throwing it out at you, and you just say, "Don't take it." And you can do that in your mind's eye. You don't even have to say it. You go, "Ch, ch."
Mm.
Now, when I first start doing this with myself, I'd be like walking around or something. Oh my goodness. 2 years ago, this person said this to me, and I was shamed, but I didn't even know it. But it took me 2 years to know that. You see how our mind has to catch up with the present? Now I'm more present with myself, that when people say things like that, I can get rid of it right away. But in the beginning, I couldn't.
Hmm.
We have to learn this. I've been at this for 15 years. And I'm a lot better. I can stand up for myself without anger. I can just say it. No, that doesn't work. That's stupid.
Hmm.
And people
Oh, go ahead.
people want to live like that. It isn't like I'm helping them by example, like Jesus did. Jesus showed us how.
Hmm. So you've actually written a book, haven't you?
Yes, I've written 5 books, a couple books.
Are they all on the same subject of shame, guilt?
To me, that's the only subject. Seriously, when you think about it, isn't shame guilt everything?
Mm-hmm.
What foods to buy, what people to be with, what to say in public, what to not say, what to do to yourself. It's everything. It's everything. It's like such an awareness that, oh my God, I never thought of that before. And then everything changes within you. It's like the most mind correction there is. But you're doing it. You don't have a half the therapist to do this. That's what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
We are not stupid people, Jay. We have been given the wrong information.
Hmm. Are you sort of at the level now to where you don't really care what other people think? I mean, you don't want to hurt anybody necessarily, but you're not really so concerned about what other people think.
I'm probably around 90%. It still comes in a little bit, but I have more power of saying, ah, I can see that, but it's not really true. One part of that's true, but most of it isn't. So I can't say that I'm totally not like that. I'm 90%. So I think that's kind of good because I still value what people say and I can deliberate if it's good or bad. I
Mm-hmm.
don't throw it away right away because we're all learning. Like you said, we're all on a journey.
Is there a way that people can reach out to you if they're interested in learning what you teach?
Sure. The best way, Jay, is for people to go to my website, loishollis.com, LoisHollis.com. I have most of my podcasts on there. So you can get me talking to different people because each person has a different view of shame guilt. That's why it's hard to teach it because you can resonate with some of this and other people don't resonate it, but they resonate with my podcast from another person, more of a spiritual way or a physical way.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be the best thing for someone to do. Also, my films, imgoodfilm.com. You can go in there and I have several films. They're only 15 minutes long and they show you what shame guilt looks like. So it's like the Wizard of Oz.
Hmm.
You see the old gray man with a puff of smoke and you say, duh, is shame guilt a puff of smoke? I don't need it. It's kind of like a duh.
Hmm.
It's very exciting. And also I give um, uh, um, with people, individual consults. You can call me, my number's there, or email me, and I can do a direct session with you to help you get rid of the shame guilt that you're carrying. And that usually works 1 or 2 sessions, and you're good to go. After you go 10 years of therapy, you only need 1 or 2 hours because
Mm-hmm.
therapy keeps on going over the shame guilt stuff, and you keep getting shamed again.
Yeah.
I mean, therapy has its place, but at long-term therapy, you're just shaming yourself again. You got to get out of it, not keep talking about it.
Hmm.
So I'm very accessible.
Is there
because that's my job.
oh,
Go ahead. Is it what?
is there one last message you'd like to leave with the audience?
Never be in shame, guilt. Call a friend, read my, I have my words, spirit words on my website, and you can download it for free.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're in shame, guilt, and can't get out of it, go to my website, click the button that says now is the time, and you'll receive my writings. And it'll give you something to read to get out of the hole of shame, guilt. It's a hole, you're stuck in it, and you got to get out. So shame, guilt is not ours to own or to give. That's my words.
Oh, well, thanks for coming on today.